Hi, I'm Craig Taylor, and as always, a huge thank you for joining me here on my YouTube channel, The Bushcraft Padawan. Regular viewers and subscribers may recall that in an earlier life, in a previous life, I was a soldier in the British Army. And one of the things that the Army does really well is acronyms and mnemonics. Small, simple words that are very easy to remember and embed, but when you start to break that word or phrase apart, it actually helps you to understand a more complex idea or a more complex principle or process or practice. And map reading and land navigation is no exception to having its fair share of acronyms and mnemonics thrown at it. One that I remember very well, even some 10, 11 years after leaving the Army, and I've probably remembered it now for about 20, 25 years, is the acronym SAVIG, spelt Sierra Alpha Victor India Golf, S-A-V-I-G, SAVIG. And it's a really good mnemonic or acronym, whatever you want to call it, to help you remember things that you should be checking when you pick a map up. Whether it's the first time you've picked a map up, whether it's been maybe a few weeks since you've picked the map up, or even if it's just been a few hours since you picked the map up, it's a good habit to get into checking these things off. So why don't we break down this word SAVIG? Remember, it's spelled S-A-V-I-G, SAVIG. Let's break that word down and let's have a look at the things that it's designed to help you remember. So let's look first at the S. The S stands for scale. Now, I've got several maps here. I've got an Ordnance Survey 1 in 50,000 map. The scale is 1 in 50,000. I have an Ordnance Survey 1 in 25,000 map. I have a town map with no scale on it. I have a Forestry Commission map, again with no scale on it. I have an orienteering map, 1 centimetre equals 4 centimetres. And I also have an escape and evasion map here of Bosnia and Herzegovina with a scale of, when he finds it, 1 in 500,000. So we've got several maps there with different scales. So why is it important when you pick a map up to double check, to triple check the scale? Well, let's just imagine that you're used to working on an Ordnance Survey 1 in 25,000 map. You're used to that scale. And then one day you pick up an Ordnance Survey 1 in 50,000 map, or any map of a different scale. If you keep using your muscle memory, if you keep using the practice and the principles that you've gained from a 1 in 25,000 map on a different scaled map, you're going to have problems. You're going to be under or overestimating the distance to something. You're going to be under or overestimating how long it's going to take to get you there. Combine those things together and you're heading for problems if you've misinterpreted the scale on a map. So when you pick a map up, take some time to search for the scale of that map and just pause and just rethink what that actually means to when you're measuring and to when you're estimating time to get to something. The S stands for scale. So let's move on to the A of SAVIG. We've looked at scale, let's look at the A, which stands for age. Now, you may or may not like this, but it's a harsh reality. Maps go out of date. You could argue that by the time you actually go into a map store and take a map off a shelf and purchase it or purchase it online, it's probably out of date by the time it gets to you. Let's think about what a map is. Let's use the analogy of a family photograph. If you take a family photograph today, it is accurate. It reflects what your family looks like, what the wallpaper was like, what clothes you were wearing today. If you look at that in a week's time, it'll be subtly different. I may have had a shave. My wife might be wearing her hair different. I may be wearing different clothes. We may have decorated. If you look at that in a year's time, there's probably going to be some more changes. If you look at that family photograph in a year's time, in 10 years' time, it's going to be very different. And that's what a map is. It's a snapshot of a given piece of land, sea, or air at a point in time. Things change, roads get built, housing estates get built, forestry gets felled, the coastline changes in some areas of the country quite dramatically over a relatively short period of time. So it's important to check the age of your map when you pick it up. Now, a little bit of a caveat here. Just because your map is old doesn't mean that it's inaccurate or full of inaccuracies. It's more likely to be, but it doesn't mean that it is. Similarly, just because you pick up a very fresh map, only maybe 2-3 years old, that doesn't mean that it's completely accurate for the reasons that we've just mentioned. So always take into account the age of your map. It stands to reason logically that the older the map is, the more potential there is for it to be out of date, yes. But don't use that as a hard and fast rule. Just consider the age of the map and think about how that's reflecting or not reflecting what you're seeing on the ground around you. The A stands for age. Scale, age. So we've looked at scale and age of SAVIG. Now let's look at the V and the I. They're actually used together and they stand for vertical interval. Again, when you pick a map up for the first time, and you've got it the right way around, make sure that you take time to acquaint yourself with the marginal information on that map to remind yourself what the vertical interval is. In other words, what's the distance between the contour lines on the map? What's that telling you? If you get this wrong, very similar to the scale, you're going to be under or overestimating how steep or shallow a slope is. Therefore, you're likely to under or overestimate how long it's going to take you to go up or down that slope. Again, combine these two factors together and you could be heading for real trouble. You could be undershooting your target, you could be overshooting your target destination. So it's similar in many respects to scale. Take some time when you pick that map up, it only takes a few seconds, go and look at the vertical interval, because even between these two Ordnance Survey maps, the vertical interval is significantly different enough for you to get into real trouble if you think your vertical interval is what it says on this map because you're used to using it, but you happen to be using this map on the day. There's a real difference between the two, so take that time. We've looked at scale, we've looked at age, we've looked at vertical interval. So now it's time to turn our attention to the final letter of SAVIG, the G, standing for GMA, or Grid Magnetic Angle. But what this is trying to get across is to take the time to look on your map at what the grid magnetic angle is. In other words, what is the difference in mils or degrees between the north lines on your map and the direction that your compass is pointing in? Grid north and magnetic north are different things. Therefore, there's an angle, there's a difference between the two. Your map will tell you what that was at the point that the map was created or was what I'm looking for, surveyed, the land was surveyed. You can then carry out some mental calculations to work out what it is today. Once again, the GMA on this map is different to the GMA on this map. If I have in my head that the GMA is 2 mils west, for example, on this map, and I keep applying that in my head, if all of a sudden I pick this map up and it's 8 mils west, there's a difference there. If I don't recognise that difference, if it doesn't stop me in my tracks and make me think, whoa, I need to do my calculations differently, I'm going to be going off course. And once again, if you combine that with getting your vertical intervals wrong, if you can combine that along with getting your scale wrong, if you assume that your map is up to date because you only bought it 6 months ago, if you combine all of the component parts of SAVIG, scale, age, vertical interval, GMA, if you make assumptions about all of them because you haven't taken the time to check your map out, you can be on a real hiding to a problem. You can be on a highway to a problem if you get one or more of those things wrong. So there we are, the acronym SAVIG. I'm going to say it again: scale, age, vertical interval, GMA, spelled S-A-V-I-G, not the traditional, usual way of spelling SAVIG. Get the map out. Go now, finish this video and go and get a map out, and just take some time to look whereabouts on your map the scale, the age, the vertical interval and the GMA are. And then go and get a different map and have a look. I'll bet you that there's a difference between the two, and I'll bet you that if you went to bother to double check and you applied one or the other of those maps, you could be heading into problems. As always, a big thank you from me to you for taking the time out of your day. I know we've all got other things to be getting on with than watching Craig ramble on YouTube, but I appreciate your viewing time. If I've said something in this video that's made you stop and think, I'd never thought of that, or he's got a point there, or I'm going to try that out, I'm going to test that and see if Craig's right, please give it a thumbs up. Please like this video if it's made you think. If you think that there's somebody in your network or one of your communities somewhere on Facebook or elsewhere on YouTube or wherever you hang out online, if you think this would be of use to people, please do share it, get the word out there. And as always, please do take the time to click that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos from me. Big thank you once again. Thanks for watching.